Good evening and happy Monday. Welcome to another episode of the opening kick on what is kind of a big week in this world. I mean, outside of two big college football games we're going to break down, I think there's some kind of something going on in the country. I don't know. I keep getting ads for it, but maybe in a day or two it'll go away and we can get back to some college football.
Leave it alone, Petty. Leave it alone.
Oh, I'm not. I don't look. That's why I won't even mention what it is. It's what shall not be spoken on this show. We're here to talk football and only football and nothing but the football.
And some music. We can talk about some music too. We can get the music, but we'll get to the football.
Okay, we can always talk music now. As always, though, I got my man Gerald Smoke Dixon with me. How you doing this night, man?
Listen, I am good on this very festive Monday. Patrick Mahomes is gonna be playing in a couple of minutes. Ooh, yeah. So let's get to it. Let's get down to this because when Mahomes in town, I gotta go. I gotta watch him.
Mahomes in town, and the Alabama Crimson Tide basketball tips off tonight. Number 2 in the country, and what hopes to be a very exciting season on the hardwood with the Crimson Tide.
Petty, there's a couple of things that I do. I do basketball real well. This football thing, I just stopped growing. But whenever you're ready to get down to this basketball, oh man, come on.
Oh, well, look, I think we're going to do some basketball on Thursday night, so we're going to have you in talking some big-time hoops because I love college basketball, and the season's just getting underway. So
now, for basketball season, it's going to cost you. This one I do for free. Basketball is going to cost you.
I love it. Well, as always, I'm your host, Daniel Petty. Man, we're excited. We got a jam-packed show for you tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about parity in college football as we get kicked off. Has our man down in the swamp saved his job? And in what is to kind of a light football schedule, we have 2 heavyweight matches going on as Georgia heads to Oxford, Mississippi to take on Kiffin and his running Rebels. And Alabama heads on down to Death Valley for another night calling Baton Rouge. And, I mean, it's no better game in college football than Alabama and LSU on a Saturday night in Death Valley. So we are here to talk about it. And also, if you are with us right now on Twitter, please come over to the Bama Standard and hit that like and subscribe. We know we got a bunch of folks over there, but we want you over here hitting that like and subscribe. So every time that we're alive, we are hitting up in your mentions. With that said, before we get going on this jam-packed show, got to give a little love to the people that keep the lights on, and that is one, Limestone Company. Have you ever dreamed of having beautiful natural stone in or around your home? Well, don't settle for subpar materials. Check out Limestone Company's selection of natural stone products to meet all of your project needs. Limestone is located in Aniana, Alabama, as one of the oldest, most trusted sources in the state. So contact them today and tell them we sent you using the promo code the Bama Standard to receive 10% off your first order. Hey, hit them up today. And as always, we thank you, Limestone. Go to realrock.co and check out those patterns that you can put on your house today. But with that said, we got some football to talk. Man, Smoke, there's been a lot of teeth gnashing over NIL and the transfer portal, and rightfully so. It's upset the apple cart. It's changed our world. We don't know who our team is from one year to the next, sometimes not 1 week to the next, with kids hopping in the portal 4 games into the season. But with that said, unless you've been living under a rock, man, this college football season, and I know it's tough for some of the teams of power, the one we're talking to right now, Alabama, is used to just taking care of business. But, man, it's kind of created some parity around this place. I mean, Vanderbilt making noise. South Carolina popping off A&M. You just don't know who's going to win week to week. With all this complaining, has it opened up what they were kind of hoping it would and brought parity to the sport that's kind of been ruled by 3 or 4 teams for the last decade?
Petty, so let me ask you to go through the top 10 in college football right now so I get to the point. Start from the bottom, work all the way to the top. Go from 10 to 1.
All right, let me pull it up.
Yeah, let's get to it. Because I don't think that it's parity is the word that we want to use. Mm-hmm. I think that we want to say coaching matters still with these players. Because it's not like you're getting a rock star or a generational player or a player that's going to change your trajectory of your season every single time you dip into the portal. There's only one team that got a single player that's changing the way that everyone's viewing them. And when we get to that team, we'll touch on it. But start at number 10 for me.
Okay, number 10, you got Notre Dame. Number 9, BYU.
Just hold on. So if we blink, Notre Dame's always top 10, aren't they? And
That's
last
where
time
they
I
like
checked, they're not dipping into the transfer portal, nor are they like big on NIL. So let's ixnay them. Let's put them out of it.
Yeah, and they're default in there every year anyway. They just put them in there regardless of what the hell they do. Number 9, BYU.
We know ain't nobody getting cashed out there. No dice.
No. Number 8, Indiana.
Now we'll get to IU. They're one.
Number 7, Tennessee. They're playing the game.
Yeah.
Number 6, Penn State.
Penn State's usually that's where they sit at year in and year out.
Number 5, Texas. We know they're playing the game.
Yeah,
their backup
exactly.
quarterback's making $3.5 million.
There you go.
Miami. We know they're playing the game. We're gonna
touch on that.
Yeah, we're gonna touch on Miami. I think Smoke's got a hot take about how that should work in the money sharing there. Number 3, Ohio State. They are all in.
Buckeyes always there, aren't they? Top 5 team.
Number 2, Georgia Bulldogs.
Come on, they've been there since Kirby got there, and Georgia's been Georgia for a long time.
Number 1, Oregon.
Listen, if they were in the pack, big C, whatever, they're floating, even with Mario Cristobal, Taggart. Put a name in there. Oregon's typically in the conversation at 10. So when you look at it, you have 2 outliers. Indiana, BYU. BYU's just playing the conference that they're just hitting on all cylinders right now.
Yeah.
And they're winning the games that they're supposed to. And this is one of those years. Indiana now, Kurt Signiti, wow, bang-up job. He took that team from JMU, majority of them, that's playing for him right now, and brought them over to IU, infused them with the vision, culture, that means control, and identity. And they're winning at a high clip, but they also did it right in the transfer portal and used the formula of quarterback that's played a lot, dominated in their conference or league or whatever division that they're in, veteran that's thrown a ton of ball, seen a bunch of defenses, understand how to operate within a system, and brought them along. Right? That to me, that's a winning success. Coach, quarterback, functional defense, trenches. Ding, ding, ding. Now you go to Miami. They won the portal gold. They hit it, the lotto, and it came up with Cam Ward. He's changed Mario to not even recognizing that Mario Cristobal is the head coach of Miami right now, because you haven't noticed him. No blunders, no misclock management. Now he came out last week and said something that makes no sense to anybody that has any mind or is. You can't tell me in this year that every kid in Florida should come to Miami when Florida is barely just holding their head above water. Florida State stinks. Central Florida is what they are. South Florida, I mean, they don't even want to shake hands with my man over there, FAU.
FAU,
and then we got fan with my man over there, my man Deuce over there with Cozy. So this is the wrong time to put your chest up and boast of saying you're the number 1 team in the state of Florida. Like, come on. But getting back to what we're saying, I don't think that the NIL and the portal has created as much parity as we think. It's created the outlook of how average coaches can look poor and how really good coaches can take their team up to the next level. Case in point, if you watch that Penn State and Ohio State game this weekend, that came down to players. None of the coaches were involved. Everything even. You had Chip Kelly that dialed up a couple of plays to free up a backside throw, a wheel route by a running back, and a couple of layup throws to Jeremiah Smith. But we still understand that Will Howard is not who we think that Will is. He's just a solid player. And Drew Allar is just a guy. So player versus player, the best team with the best players won that game by 7 points. And if you look at it, Penn State was in the red zone 4 times, came away with 6 points, goal line stand, and still only lost 13-20. So, yes, you spent a lot of money NIL-wise, but only for 7 points. Is it worth it?
I don't know. Man, I think we're going to see a lot of teams that are questioning, was it worth it here in about a week or two if they don't see their teams in the playoff and they're watching guys making a lot of damn money checking out of
Ole
ball
Miss. Ole Miss.
All right,
sorry.
we're going to get to that. I think. Hold on now. Don't be hurting my feelings early. But look, we got a big game coming up that's a make or break in the season for a certain team, and I'm dead serious. I think this game for you talking about Ole Miss, they lose to Georgia. I think that could easily parlay into a loss the next week at Florida, and I almost would assure it. But you're talking about parity. But look at the top 10. You got 3 SEC teams. And Tennessee's one that hadn't been there lately at number 7. You got Georgia, who's been there since, since COVID. And then you got Texas, the newcomer. But outside of that, you got Bama at number 11 with Boise State and SMU sitting on their heels. You got Clemson at number 19 with Army and Iowa State sitting in front of them right now. I mean, that's where I feel like the parity is coming off of. I mean, there's teams getting popped left and right. I mean, we talked about it last week, and I said Louisville had the offense to go in and pop Clemson. I didn't think they would do it, but hell, I said you can't take anything for granted right now.
Yeah, you had there's good Cade and there's bad Cade, which equals average Cade, and that's what you had last week. To me, I get this whole NIL and portal deal, but it's still, how are you evaluating and structuring your roster? And if you have a high level of evaluation skills, you'll get the right player or players at your school. That's meaning that you're going to have to pay for some, but you're not going to have to pay for all of them. And you pay the right ones in order to win. And a lot of these schools are still picking the wrong ones. And they're upside down with their cap, and there's a lot of dead money out of there because the dead money for the players that you paid a ton to with zero production behind it. And those production points should be in the value of wins, not stats for them.
Well, and I think we're not to cut you off, Smoke, but on top of it, I also think we're seeing the culture side of it. It don't matter how good of a player you are being added to a new roster like Ole Miss, you see them struggle out of the gate with these guys who are now dominating games, and people are like, well, shit, it didn't work. Well, no, I mean, there's real aspects to the culture building of this with all these teams. When you're bringing in a new guy that thinks his shit don't stink with a bunch of other guys that have kind of felt the same but have done it together, and now he's trying to work into that culture. You're seeing teams in games that you don't expect them to lose, Vanderbilt's, Kentucky's, where they're getting popped. I don't know, man. It's go ahead.
So, Petty, when in the game of football, you're going to, if you play 13 games or 12 games, 13 games schedule, you're going to get into a few, maybe I'll say 3 games that are going to be clinchers. Ones that you're going to have to toughen out, and you're going to see where you're at. And building teams and being part of good teams and great teams and championship teams, you always need that strong personality that's going to challenge everyone. If that's not the coach, if that's not a position coach, that's a strength coach, that's one of your teammates. It's called a leader, alpha. And when you have an alpha there that's challenging a guy that's coming in only on a transactional reason for money, and things aren't going their way, what happens is they check out. And in football, there's no checking out because we're all banged up once you get past the first day.
Yeah.
And if I'm paid $1 million and I know that mill's guaranteed to me, and I have a chipped nail or my toe hurts or whatever, and we aren't 10-0 or we're just 6-1 and we're at the cusp of get off or poop on the pot, most likely those guys that transferred in, there's a reason why they left the school before. So usually we all revert back to what we were before we got there. And it takes a tough person, a tough coach that understands adversity and can mend and build teams to quickly get people from all different walks of life to work together. And within a couple of months, I mean, stats will show you over the years has worked. The big name guys, unless it's a quarterback that is a true alpha leader, a la Cam Ward, like you're not getting that.
And so that begs the question, maybe there's parity, but at what cost? An uglier product, a product where players are quitting on teams, don't have good camaraderie, and so games are won, or there's parity because games are just ugly. And that's, so it's not parity in a good regard. It's parity because the game's getting
Watered down. You
Watered
have
down with
you have less coaching. You have less tough coaching. The lack of discipline is there. The care factor for players are removed because they know that I'm still getting my bread. I'm still getting my money.
Yep.
So what am I going to use to challenge you? Playing time? Well, you're still getting paid. You're not worried about playing time anymore because if I cut your time here or sit you down, you're going to run down the compliance office and jump in the portal, and some mercenary is going to pick you up. And you're going to go there and you're going to adapt the same principles and do the same as you did before.
Yep.
So, yes, some parity, but it's an understanding that it's just a watered-down football game that we're watching. And at times it can become unwatchable.
Comes an ugly product.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt, Auburn this week. Look, I get the Vanderbilt excitement, love. That was an ugly football game of just punting and no good, shitty offense and whatever. But speaking of alphas, before we move on to the next topic, I noticed our man Caleb Taylor in the chat recognizes one of us from our stud playing days. Wait, he's talking about you, Smoke. He said, thank you, man. That dude was a headhunter on that 2002 defense. It was really good with Wayne Bacon, Jarrett Johnson, Brooks Daniel, Kendall Moorhead. You know those guys?
Listen, man, I was the worst player out of every single last one of them, man. Kendall Moorhead is the worst shaped, physique athlete and I've ever been around, but you couldn't tell him that because he's a freak athlete. Brooks Daniels is the hardest hitter I've ever been around. Jarrett Johnson is one of the best leaders I've ever been around. And Wayne Bacon, my college roommate and a great friend. I've been knowing Wayne since 1995. We just happened to show up to Alabama and be there together. The best athlete on that team. So I just happened just to be a part of those guys and just rode the wave. But I appreciate that, though, Caleb.
Humble as always. If you didn't know that, Caleb, Smoke's also a little bit on the humble side. Speaking of humble, man, humbling down in Florida, Billy Napier's been on the hot seat all year. I want to talk to this a little bit before we get into the big games because he does have some Alabama ties. And what kind of caught me today as I was listening to Siski and McCready kind of talk about Napier, and AJ was on with them. And when talking about saving assistants, Kirby is the golden boy. It's really no debate who took on the learning the best and has put it into practice. Kirby is absolutely replicated almost what Saban did at Alabama. Not as long, obviously, but he's doing it the best. But it's known by a bunch of them, and Siski is a part of that coaching circle, that the next in that group that they thought followed Saban's examples, ran the programs the way that Saban did it, was Billy Napier. And he catches a lot of shit for being a caveman, an idiot. He's in that Mario Cristobal. But there are a lot of coaches in the Saban circle that will tell you and respect that Napier was right there under Kirby. And so, look, man, you can't deny what he did at Louisiana Lafayette. I think it was Louisiana Lafayette. But and it hasn't worked out at Florida. But, man, I want to ask this. The losses are there, but you watch them every week, and, Lagway goes down, and they're beating Georgia. They take Tennessee to overtime. There's a play here and there, and the schedule is about to run up some more losses on them, especially if they're having to go to the third-string quarterback. Has Napier done enough to salvage his job in Florida? Would they be stupid to get rid of him, Smoke, or is it time to just move on? It ain't working.
You know what? First and foremost, man, I'm going to go ahead and apologize to Coach Napier. I've been calling him Sunbelt Billy for a long time. And I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna be the bigger man. I'm gonna go ahead and sit up and say he's done way better this year than I thought he was gonna do overall. I mean, he's coached that team to his best ability, and I think he's gotten the most out of that team when you look at their roster and you study it. Would I have said go to the younger guy earlier? Absolutely, because that guy infused hope, belief. And he just gives you that extra oomph for those guys to play because he challenges you both in the run game, as running as a quarterback, but also he can stretch the field vertically and give you those explosive that you need in order not to just grind out 12 and 15 play drives, which are almost mission impossible. Has he done enough to salvage his job? I think you got to just see who's out there. And if it's close, you leave him where he's at, knowing what you're going to get. At the end of the day, at max, you're going to get a 7 or 8 win guy. And if you can live with that, hoorah. If you can't, then you have to move on. But also, Florida has to understand who they are in the current era and climate of college football. And can they get into that horse race? Can they get into the NIL, salary cap era of college football, the college sports in itself? And if the answer is I don't know, well, he's an I don't know, middle of the road coach that you keep, and you give him the opportunity in year 4 and 5 to see if he can work through that contract so you don't have to buy him out. But right now, I don't see any names that's just jumping out there unless you have Kirk Cignetti that says I'm going to leave Indiana in a year and go down to Florida and totally rebuild that by taking my team with me like he did with JMU, bring him down there. But it's a different ball game and figure that out. But I don't got an answer for if he salvaged his job or not. I think he's done way better than I thought he was going to do at the beginning of the season and 3 weeks ago. I apologize again, man. Bang up job. Keep doing your thing.
Well, and I think you've got to, as an AD, do your due diligence and see what's out there, what's going to come available. I mean, you got to have a short list of coaches that may be on the hot seat, maybe wanting a better opportunity. Would Cignetti leave 1 year into this Indiana rebuild when he's done so good and maybe doesn't have to compete with so much in the Big 12 as he does down in the SEC? The expectation Big 10, the Big 37, the Big 100 now. But, still the expectations at Indiana versus a school like Florida that's going to always expect Steve Spurrier or Urban Meyer to walk through that door. What's out there. And again, I've heard this point made several. If you're going to spend $26 million on a buyout in the NIL era, why don't you just go get a damn 5-star receiver to go with your 5-star quarterback? Go get that rush in that changes the damn game, or buy a defensive line like Ole Miss did to try to get them.
Who's saying that? Who's saying that to you, Petty?
Saying what?
Instead
of paying the buyout, put it towards NIL.
Who's giving the recipe for disaster that you just spat out?
Your boy.
Who's doing it?
Your boy Siski.
Yes.
Says,
I think Siski was just on. I think Siski was just throwing out examples. I don't think Siski actually meant to just say, just go get a 5-star receiver and 4 guys at $26 million.
He's not saying. He's saying go back, put it towards the NIL and get him some players. Don't put it towards his buyout.
And that he and I agreed on that. But I hear a lot of people, experts, giving away secrets or saying that they're going to help out a team by getting 5 players. Yeah. I don't know if there are 5 that can just come in right now and just change your team for 3 years. And I think that's what we have to look at if you're building a team. Because, again, that $26 million is just for 1 year. Does that make sense? You got to have 26 the next year, or 25 or 20 for the next year. So it's not as right. So you're just purchasing one team. And who's to say that one team is going to go on a run like Cam Ward is doing at Miami? And Miami spent their money right too, because if you really look at Miami, it just wasn't one player.
Oh,
they came in that second wave of defensive line, man, they did it the right way because they know that the Barons of the world can get after you. That second wave, get after you. They went out and got that ground and pound running back to savor the clock. Then they said, you know what? We're going to spend all of this. We're going to keep our receivers together. We're going to keep that offensive line together, the left tackle, right tackle, the guard, the center. We're going to keep that together. And they kept their team together more than going out and getting a new team. They just added complementary pieces to their team to help build. So when I hear everyone saying, or not everyone, but a lot of people saying, let's just go out and go get a quarterback, an edge rusher, a left tackle, and a 5-star receiver. So those are 4 players.
Yeah.
And then 1 or 3 plays, all of them go down. It's football. It's not basketball.
Yeah.
Now what?
Well, now you're screwed. You
there
put
you
your
go.
eggs somewhere best. Now you. Hey, by the way, we got one Antonio Carter in the chat, giving a shout out to you, man, Smoke. You know that guy?
Man, listen, that is the best receiver coach, and any one of us that's coached in that's finished playing at Bama, that either their head coaches or whatever, Antonio Carter is the best coach, period, that's been out of Bama in a long time. Deuce is my guy. He's down at FAMU right now, coaching the mess out of those guys with passion, desire, technique, like attention to detail. And again, that's one of my best friends in this entire world. My college roommate, my brother. Yeah, that's
I gotta give a shout out to a big win, right? This week of
man. Listen, man, him and James Colsey and those guys down at FAMU, they're doing their thing. But for Deuce, it goes past football. He's family, so that's my man.
And that man, I appreciate you being in the chat, AC. But more than anything, I know the fans love to hear when you guys talk like that. They love to hear the brethren between that Bama Phi Psi.
Man,
they go through that, right?
We were on our recruiting visits together. We were roommates for how many years? We're doing 2 years. I think we're only like 3 days apart in terms of birth.
Funny story. This show not only has afforded me to work with someone as awesome as Gerald Smoke Dixon, I've gotten to meet the Antonio Carters of the world. And I finally got to tell him because, I was in college when you boys were kicking ass on the field. Right. And I was up there sneaking in bourbon into the student section and yelling at y'all. And it was AC Carter, and no one knew what the C stood for. So I finally got to ask him. I was like, forever we've just called you Antonio Carter, because nobody knew what the hell to say. And he just bust out laughing and said, y'all did the same thing, because it didn't stand for anything. He was Antonio Carter, and then they called him AC, and then they messed up and put it on the jersey as AC Carter, and then the legend goes.
Tank did him right, but I'll tell you like this: I have never in my entire life seen Antonio Deuce Carter drop a football, drop a punt, a kickoff. Listen, I've done one-on-ones with him. If I didn't break the ball up or pick it up, it was a catch. And I would say he has a high catch rate against me and a lot of other guys that lined up against him.
Did he make you better in practice?
Man, we made each other better. But healthy, yeah, he's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
If he would have finished out his 4 years healthy, man, go down as one of the best ever to put on the crimson jersey.
I won't argue.
And I'm just not saying it because I'm biased. I'm saying it because it's a God honest truth.
No, AC was awesome.
Oh,
he was you're not. I don't think you're being biased at all. I think AC was every bit of what you're saying. AC was amazing. Injuries just derailed it, man. He was. Whew. God, glad he's in the chat though. Glad you guys get to catch up through this forum. But man. With that said, it's time to talk a little bit of football, Smoke.
Let's go to it.
We've talked scenarios. Now let's talk about the big games. It's not a heavy slate this weekend, but there are two heavyweight matches that are going to end. Let's be real. This is now playoff. The playoffs have started now. There are two programs on Saturday night that are going to be officially out of the playoff hunt, and two programs that are going to either be positioned well in it or better for it. And man, let's start with the early one and then head and we'll finish. I know there's a bunch of Bama fans in the chat. We are going to finish with Bama LSU, but we'd be remiss not to talk about the one at 2:30 going on in Oxford, Mississippi, as the number 2 Georgia Bulldogs head to number 16 Ole Miss at 2:30 on ABC. Georgia, a 2.5-point favorite that might have shocked some people. Tough as nails. Petty, is Ole Miss going to pull off the win in the Grove? There's two elements to Petty's soul right now.
Let me hear it.
When I go on my job and those endorphins start kicking, and I think of the defense that Ole Miss has put on the field under one Pete Golden the last few weeks and what Georgia's done offensively, and I'm like, this might be the time the Rebels pop. And then down deeper in my soul is the long-term Ole Miss fan that says, calm your ass down. You know what happens in big situations for Ole Miss. And it starts with the word C, ends with an E, and it's Hoke in the middle. So, look, this is notorious choke chance for Ole Miss every time it seems like and look, Ole Miss is that program like they haven't won the titles, but they've been in positions time and time again. They get to the doorstep, and it seems like something crazy ass happens to kind of kick them in the nuts. Go back to Arkansas, 4th and 24 when Hunter Henry just threw it up behind his head and it happened to go to the running back. Ole Miss wins that game. They walk to Atlanta. They blow it in the biggest opportunities. I got Laquan Treadwell. They're number 3 in the country heading into the end zone to beat Auburn. They tackle him. It looks like he breaks his leg. And like, man, you lose your best receiver. Then they review it and you realize he fumbled into the end zone. Not only did they lose their best receiver, they lost the game all in one fell swoop. So Ole Miss has had opportunities, and it always seems to find a way to blow them. And look, my man Smoke, I'm rambling on this one. I'm gonna let him talk, but
let's clear up a couple of things.
Go for it.
4th and 24. You're never supposed to get that.
No.
All right. That's not an opportunity. That's a fireable offense. That's a fireable offense.
You freeze. Get out of here.
4th and 24. End it again. Come on. Tackle the ball and get it over with. Just can't get in the end zone.
You remember the play Hunter Henry just threw it behind his head and then the running back picked it up?
Yeah, listen.
Yeah, okay.
That ain't a choke. That is a coaching blunder, playing blunder. You can't live with that one, and you can't forgive yourself for that one. But I mean, that was a national championship team. So I don't think, and I don't want to let down the Rebel fans too hard. So it's going to be a gently slide down the slope of reality.
Well, you
are what you are.
You've got a team coming to Oxford that has, in their last 55 games, if you take out Alabama, they're 53-0. So
yeah. So is it going to be really a choke, or this might be one of the greatest upsets of the century if Ole Miss beats Georgia?
That's right. That's the question, Smoke. And you question, can Lane Kiffin get it done on this stage? Can he?
No.
Jeez, you didn't even hesitate.
Why?
You don't think he can win Saturday?
No. I'm trying to play out every single scenario.
All right,
let's start off with this scenario because we got time. And I like
we got 2 games that knock out in the next 25. Let's rock.
There's times that I get too analytical and too serious, and everyone in the chat saying, "Hey, Smoke, you're just too serious." I put my military hat on today, letting you guys know that I can't play around, even though when I'm serious. All right. So let's just run this down real quick. Let's start with Georgia's offense, and at the worst, let's say Carson Beck goes out and plays like he's played for the last 4 weeks. Very average to bad. Forget the statistics. He's turning the ball over.
He's got 8 interceptions over the last 3 games.
And when you look at him in the pocket, you're seeing a scared guy that's seeing 13 players, not 11. And looking confused in an offense that he's been around. It's not like a young guy. He's young in terms of this is his 2nd year starting and playing. But this is an old man. He's been around ball for a long time. This is it for him. So if he goes out there and still plays bad, Ole Miss still has to go out there and play disciplined, physical football in order for Georgia and Kirby still and Mike Bobo still not to muster up 30 points, which we've seen them do. Just find a way to muster up points. They did it against Bama. They did it against Texas. They did it against Florida. They're going to find a way. Everything even, I'm going to go ahead and say Kirby and Bobo. And I love my man, Wes Neighbors over there at Ole Miss, one of the best secondary coaches in the world. And Pete Golden is doing a bang-up job. So all you Bama fans that was talking reckless at him over these years, you might want to say we wish we had Pete right now. But that's a whole nother story for another day. We'll touch on it next. Yeah, he's still not going to do it. I seen the young boy Frazier come in there, and even though they don't have a receiver outside that knows what to do and how to get there and run the right routes, I don't see the Ole Miss defense standing firm against the most average Georgia offense that we've seen in the last 5 years.
Okay, and I'm gonna hold you right there, Smoke, and let throw some stuff at you, and then let you say why. Okay, you say Ole Miss doesn't have a chance, but you just pointed out in the last 3 games, Beck's thrown 8 interceptions. He's been harassed. He looks a little lost. The offense looks off. In the last 2 games, Ole Miss has 17 sacks as a defense and 28 tackles for a loss. Last year, the difference in that game, Kiffin walked off that field knowing they could play 10 times and it would never have been within 20 points because they couldn't win in the trenches. You talked about Miami having a nucleus and then adding the pieces they needed. Ole Miss had a nucleus in Jackson Dart, Trey Harris, the offensive guys, but they realized the defensive line was where it was hurting. You got J.J. Pegues, but he was a one-man show. You go add Walter Nolan, Princely Uiagalelei, and those guys, like I said, 17 sacks in the last 2 games. They didn't touch Carson Beck last year. Like, they literally didn't have to wash his uniform after the game. That was the difference. But here's a completely different Ole Miss defensive line that's wreaking havoc. And you're saying Beck's looking this bad. He's now probably going to face the best defensive line he's faced this year outside. I mean, I guess Texas is arguable, but Ole Miss's front seven's putting up scarier numbers right now. How does that not swing the game in Ole Miss's favor? How can that not hold up against a Georgia offense that you just said is a little bit more average?
Because Georgia doesn't have to pass the ball to win the game. And there's still instances against Ole Miss that you can run the ball down their throat and be physical and create yardage. And Carson Beck is good enough to get a couple of explosive plays and win the game. And Georgia's getting healthy. Best offensive lineman's back. So we shall see. But I'm going to say offensively, Georgia can muster up enough and have enough physical play. And they still have that psychological victory already. Right now, Ole Miss, even yourself, you don't believe that you can win that game at all. Lane don't believe it. Not a person on Ole Miss team truly believes that they can look across the field, look at Kirby, look at that defense, look at that offense, and even look up at Mike Bogle and say, man, we can win this game. Damn. Your best chances last year didn't do it. Good luck. Sorry.
I disagree. I think they look at this Georgia offense on film and they look at what their defensive front has the ability to do, and they tell themselves we can win this game because we can get their offense. The problem is, can they score on Georgia's defenses that flexes?
Yeah, I only spoke about one side of the ball. Georgia's defense can still score, and Georgia's special teams is still good. So everything, even if you want to say Ole Miss's defense trumps Georgia's offense, that's one. But Georgia's defense trumps Ole Miss's offense. Special teams, coach, like history, Georgia. You have to psychologically, you have to win the game before you show up. Because if you're trying to win the game in the fourth quarter by telling yourself at that point that you're going to get the W and you can get this 3rd and 1, yeah, the game's over already. Because I know them dogs on behind them, yeah, they're barking already and they want to chew your butt off. They have. Until you can show me that your head coach has the mental aptitude to go in there, be locked in for 4 quarters, not for 3, not for 2, for 4. And if it takes a 5th quarter, yeah, be ready for that too. I just know the guy on the other side, on the other sideline, Kirby, I've seen it. And the only one that I've seen ruffle his feathers, yeah, it's Kalen and Nick. And last time I checked, Ole Miss and Bama are 2 different things.
That's the question I have, Smoke, and I'll be real. As an Ole Miss fan, I actually do. I think the team was built to be able to play in this, and I think it has the front 7, but we're going to get to the defense and the offense. But I wonder, Lane has a propensity in big games to go into a shell. Saban on him. Saban did it to him. There was times where he felt like he had the team to beat it, but he'd go in there and Saban would blow his damn brain up. Did he have the who knows? But in big games, he does appear to tighten up, be a different coach than the ones, because you talk about history. Yeah, you can talk history. Ole Miss hadn't won in Fayetteville since 2008, and they just dropped 63 on them. So history doesn't mean as much in this new era. Princely, Yamalele, Walter Nolan don't give a shit what happened the last 4 times Ole Miss played Georgia. They give a shit about getting to the quarterback. Again,
if you believe that, if you believe that, that's fine. But I just saw a Big Ten matchup where head-to-head Penn State looked across the line of scrimmage, looked on the other sideline and like, we did everything right, and we just can't do it.
Now you're talking to the second level of my soul. That's like, yeah, he's telling the truth. You better pay attention.
I mean, Ole Miss is going to come. They're going to come in and they're going to try hard for the first 2 series. After the first 2 series, I can tell you how this thing's going to go. Critical 3rd down when you have to line up and just we can't trick guys into plays and scheme up plays all the way when you have good players that are disciplined like Georgia's defense is, and they're getting healthy.
And what does Georgia do when it look, man, I don't think they saw Florida as a real threat. I know it's the name Florida, big rivalry, all that horseshit, but when Kirby, like the Texas game, when Kirby gets anything into his team's head that you're being disrespectful, or that they show up. So again,
Petty, let me ask you a question. Who did Georgia play the week before Texas? And what did they look like?
God, I can't remember. Was that that were they that wasn't the I'm
No,
trying to remember. It wasn't Vanderbilt, was it? Who did they
no.
play?
I'm gonna let you think through that one because I got the answer for you.
Well, go ahead and shoot it out so I ain't gonna look it up.
I'm just gonna tell you that everyone walked away saying, "Oh, it's Georgia."
Georgia looked bad the week before. They didn't
look like what, and they still didn't play their best game against Texas.
Oh, State. Okay. Thank you, Nicholas. Give me a cheat sheet down there. Yeah, they beat State 41-31.
No, they didn't look real good against Mississippi State.
Yeah, they gave up 31 points.
Yeah, and you came and we both said, he said, "Oh man, I'm just, Mississippi State's gonna give them a hell of a game." Yeah, sure they did. They walked into Texas and just pat, 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 boom, and sent them on their way. You brought their backup quarterback in because the starter was seeing stars. It's just that time of the year where really good teams get locked in. The real good coaches get locked in because this is go time. And the names that was put on that chart that said and screamed, like Georgia's ready to go on this hunt.
I hope
Ole Miss checked out already. Ole Miss checked out 3 weeks ago.
Sorry. I don't know if you've watched. Have you watched the last two Ole Miss? This last 6 quarters of Ole Miss football. It almost seems like a light might have come on at second half of Oklahoma.
So we're talking about Oklahoma that I've seen Oklahoma play. You have to. Oh yeah. It's a bad conversation of any team that you're saying is competitive right now.
Mm-hmm.
They've gone back and forth with quarterbacks, fired an offensive coordinator. Defense is playing lights out because they have to, because everything else is bad over there. And they're not a good team right now.
Who's that, Ole Miss?
No, Oklahoma.
Oh, Oklahoma. Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
And then you have Arkansas. Your starting quarterback gets hurt. Arkansas is Arkansas. Arkansas is okay. They're not great. And if you cut the film on, Jackson Dart was throwing to a lot of open guys with nobody around.
Wow.
Yeah. So if I can't hit open players for 500 yards, come on.
We'll see. I'll say this. In this new era of parity and crazy shit happening, Louisville winning and Clemson, I'm crazy for saying this. I like Ole Miss's chances Saturday to shock.
You better. You're an Ole Miss fan.
Nah. I get vibes. I didn't feel good about LSU. I know when but this is one where Georgia. This isn't last year's Georgia smoke. This is a new era of college football.
What do you mean it's not last year's Georgia?
I'll tell you this. I'll be back on Monday.
They're ranked number 2.
That's great. I don't care.
They beat the number 1 ranked team.
Dude, there's no indestructible.
I'm not saying that, but Georgia lost to Bama, and Bama got up by 28 points, and they walked them down. Take away a miraculous Hail Mary throw to Ryan Williams, and Georgia
take away a miraculous Hail Mary throw to Berrien Brown and a Lulu play from Nussmeier on 4th and 18, and Ole Miss is undefeated. So we can do the take away 2 play hypothetical. So and you got it. Then you're looking at Ole Miss as number 2 in the country or number 1. So Ole Miss is 2 plays number 2 in the country.
I got you. It makes sense. Everybody has a crazy scenario, but you're down 2 bets already. So
hold on. I'm down 1. I thought, where did the second one come from? You're going to have to get me off air and tell me what I owe you. With that said, we got Bama fans in the chat that are itching to hear about their Tide headed down to Death Valley. Number 11, Alabama, heading to number 14, LSU. Nighttime in Death Valley, 6:30 ABC. Bama is a 3-point favorite with an over-under of 58.5. I think this is a battle smoke of quarterbacks. You've got Nussmeier, who I believe is probably has one of the highest ceilings of NFL potential of SEC quarterbacks right now. If you haven't watched him, Nussmeier can make all the throws. But LSU's offense isn't always consistent. It is up and down. They don't have the greatest run game. And then you flip it over to Alabama. It's night and day. You've got the Georgia half. You've got moments where this offense looks like a machine. And then you have moments like in Tennessee where things go off the rails a little bit. It looks a little scuffly. Is this a game that comes down to quarterback smoke?
I think this is a game that comes down to how you want to win the game in terms for Alabama. How do you want to win it? You go back and you watch LSU versus South Carolina. And before my man Lenore Sellers went down, he was having a day with QB runs. And I think that's what Jalen Milroe does best, being a dual threat. And the more that you incorporate him early and settle him down and allow him to play at his speed against this LSU's defense that I'm not fired up about, I think they're okay. Alabama can have their way in the run game and the pass game.
I think so.
I think this one, Bama has a really good shot. I hate picking games. I'm not really good at the picking thing. I can tell you who I would
tell me two scenarios of why it goes in the favor of Alabama and what goes off the rails, and then Bama's looking up at the end of the night wondering what happened.
If Bama comes out and they want to get in the drop back game to audition Ryan Williams as the best receiver in the country, I think Bama's going to have a long night and the game is going to go further into the night than it needs to get into. I think Bama can eliminate a lot of the inconsistent plays with Jalen Milroe by run-pass option, run-only options, and only give him half-field reads. What I mean by half-field reads is keep his eyes either to the left or to the right. And if 1, 2, your third option, which is a hot, not open, well, you take advantage of your feet. Or you go 1, 2, and hot is you running. And when I say run, that means step in, out the pocket to the front door, and not always spinning back to get forward. Have a plan. Now, if you go on the other side, I don't believe LSU can run the ball on Bama because I haven't seen LSU do that at high clip. And I think that's Bama's kryptonite. A lot of people might say it's the pass. No, I think they can defend the pass by simulating pressures, loading up coverage, and playing in deep enough to not allow explosive plays and keep everything in front of him and force Garret Nussmeier to go into 10 to 12 or 15-yard plays just to score. And when you do that, that's when Nuss gets a little bit angsty and want to now create plays that aren't there and not take what the defense gives to him. So now you give the other team, what he's done the last few weeks, an opportunity to get the ball back. Young guy trying to figure it out. So going into the game, I think this is a quarterback matchup. Which quarterback can be the stabilizer for their team? Is it Garret Nussmeier by throwing the ball at a high clip and making the right reads and not forcing the ball where it does not need to go into triple and double coverage? And also Kane Womack creating enough pressure looks to now make him think it's something. And then when he turns around to something else or change the picture on the front end and the back end, have 7 across the line of scrimmage, think it's a 0 blitz, come out, play 3 deep, 3 under, or come with the 0 blitz at times to get the ball out of his hands, make tackles, and get off the field. Or is Kalen DeBoer going to go into the game and say, I've tried the entire drop back thing, but now I have to create options for my quarterback, which is really a true dual threat guy with 2 good running backs that I can incorporate in a 20 personnel, meaning 2 back offense, and get the ball out to either one, because both of them are good enough blockers in the run game as well too. But also isolate their linebackers with those 2 guys and shorten up the game for Jalen Milroe. Just say, hey, listen, Jalen, get the ball out of your hand. There's your hot. Go there right now. Here's your level throw. You got 1, 2. If he jumps it, throw it behind him. If he stays back, give it to him. And we'll just take our time and go down the field. Because once they get in the red zone, that's now where Milroe gets better because he has the advantage of extending plays, but also being a runner with the ball in his hand. And Bama can also run the ball because I've seen him do
about 22, even some 12 personnel with 2 tight end sets. I feel like would give. I mean, I feel like both Dupree and Newts have looked really good, and I feel like there's a lot you can work out of that could simplify things in that regard as well, and keep things in that louder environment where you've got folks kind of closer together. But you were talking about the zero blitz. I won't, just for fans' sake that don't understand all the terminology, and I believe even at Alabama, I think under Saban that was called a man zone or whatever, man blitz.
So
Explain folks what zero blitz is, just for the ones that don't know. I don't do this enough as a host on the show, and I've caught myself looking back on our shows. You talk so much ball and so much spitting out facts, and I've even caught McElroy doing it. Y'all say things that have come from coaches. I'm not sure everybody always understands, and maybe they do. But if they don't, explain someone what a zero blitz is.
So we'll just run through it real quick. So when if anyone says a man-free coverage, that means the middle field safety guy back there, and there's an underneath player, which is a second-level defender that's going to help on any crossers coming across. That's man-free. Man-free, one guy free, and you're playing man-to-man defense. Everybody that's a eligible player is covered up by a safety, linebacker, or corner. Now, when you go to a zero blitz, that means there's no help. You have that man-to-man, no one's helping, and you're most likely sending more blitzers or more defenders than the offense can block. So you'll send 7, and they only have 6 to protect. And that'll be a zero blitz and a zero look. So when you have everybody across the line of scrimmage, all the DBs, the 2 corners, the 2 safeties, or even across, and you see them at 7 yards, locked in, keyed in on their man, and everybody else is at the line of scrimmage, lined up and ready to go, that's a zero pressured look. They can also come out of that and play coverage. When I say 3 deep, 3 under, that means 3 underneath defenders and cover 3. Everybody has a third, deep third, middle third, outside third. And it's real easy. If you understand math, you can understand football. Thirds, 3 thirds equal a whole, 2 halves equal a full, 4 quarters equals 1.
There you go. Matt, no, it didn't even know you'd come out on the opening kick on Monday night and get math lessons. We're here for everything. But I think that
answer my man Caleb question.
I think that parlays greatly into Caleb's question, because you're talking about thirds of the field. You're talking about secondary coverages. He says, hey, Gerald, can that Bama secondary cover these speedy receivers, Kyron Lacy and Aaron Anderson?
No, they can't cover man. They cannot cover them man-to-man, because I don't think Bama guys are coverage guys at this point. They're more ball awareness, ball production players. And what I mean by that, they have the ability to, when you put the ball in the air, just like you saw against Georgia, come up with a pick. But they don't have coverage ability to be tight on them to close windows. So that's why I'm always saying simulated pressure. Let the quarterback think that you're bringing a 7-man pressure. That means 7 defenders coming at you, or 6-man pressure, meaning they have to get the ball out of their hand, because they got to throw it to a hot, which a hot is the first guy that's right there, player that you can throw the ball to. And now speed up Nussmeier and might throw you a pick because you're not playing cover 2. That means half field coverage. Corners down, 2 safeties back.
So the eye candy, you play him with his eyes. What
trick him?
And I think there's 2 games that Bama need. I mean, you can really look at recently in LSU's, most recent tilts against A&M. Again, look how they used the run game against that how A&M was able to use the run game against the defense. And look, you go back to the Ole Miss LSU game in Baton Rouge and how their defense was able to control LSU up until the final drive. I think LSU had 220 yards of total offense into the final drive of the game, where they went for 90, but they did it with what you said. They simulated a lot of pressure, but then they would bring it, and created a lot with the front 4. And when you're pressuring Nussmeier, he's going to be off. I think he was 23 of 51 that night. But again, when they bracked the pressure off, he was able to sit back there and pick it apart. You've got to be able, and that's where you talk about giving the eye candy to kind of throw him off. But I think, again, as hot as this LSU offense can get, if him and Kyron Lacy are in lockstep, man, they're very dangerous. It's much like last year with, it's not Jaden Daniels, but Jaden Daniels and good God, the name's escaping me right
Neighbors
now.
And Brian Thomas.
Yeah, and Thomas. I mean, he hit those corner routes to the end zone. It's like LSU has the market on that play, and Nussmeier can hit it as well with Lacy. So yeah, man, you're gonna have to just to mix it up, but put pressure, be able to sustain drives and keep them off the field as well, man. Get that running game going with Milroe and let Justice Haynes and Eat, let those guys go. And Jam Miller, because you keep them off, you put pressure on them to score every time, and then I think the defense can get to LSU. Look, and that's two things with the atmosphere that's coming. Smoke. The first one I want to get to a fan question, because this is not so much the atmosphere of the madness of Death Valley, but there's a damn hurricane that's supposedly coming our direction. How crazy is that going to make it? They say it's going to be bad. I know it's still up in the air. There's a lot of thoughts of it could go a different direction, but.
Well, if we're speaking of inclement weather, you're going to have to go with a team that can handle the run game at a higher clip. And I would say that's Bama. Being able to run the ball and also have your quarterback become a dominant runner. Everything even in the game, if you have a quarterback that's mobile, especially in inclement weather, I would take that team.
Because the defense, you're having to read and react, and the quarterback knows it. Yeah, it's harder to react on the wet ground than it is know where you're stepping and going.
Yeah, Ole Miss has to throw to win the game. That's what I'm getting to. If they're not throwing in a high clip, they're not winning.
Gotcha. And then I agree with you. I think Alabama's much more set up to stop the run, and I don't think LSU's run game's been very dynamic. If it's a downpour and they're having to throw, it's going to be very rough. They haven't prepared for Reed. The question is, will they be prepared for Milroe?
Oh, I think he's getting to the zone read and Marcel Reed from Texas A&M.
Yeah.
And also being able to do the zone read with the quarterback. And again, Nicholas, I'm 100% with you. And that's one of the hardest things to defend is the quarterback run, because you have to take that middle of the field safety that I was talking about. If you're speaking of man coverage, you got to take him out the middle of the field to now come down in the box to account for the quarterback as a runner. So that's why I've always said the greatest equalizer in college football is a mobile and a running quarterback. And if you have one, take advantage of it until the defense tells you not to.
Well, let me parlay that into, okay, a mobile quarterback, can they equalize the crowd noise? Being able to, is it less of a factor because you're going down to Death Valley, but let me set this up a little bit. Look, Death Valley is known as one of the most intimidating environments, but every time I talk to a former Bama player, I got a show with Matt Caddell, I got a show with you, it was almost like you guys were excited to go to Death Valley. There was no nerves. A lot of teams go down there and it eats them up, but I feel like, I'll be honest, man, I know people joke, you're messing with me about Ole Miss in the chat. Do I think they're going to win? Yada, yada. I've got my internal Ole Miss feelings, but I got my internal Bama feelings too. I watched a lot of Ole Miss teams melt in Death Valley, and I watched a lot of Alabama teams go down there, and it doesn't phase them at all because Alabama just seems to be cut from a different cloth in that vein. And again, you hear it when guys talk about, Matt Caddell was stoked to go to Death Valley and all that madness.
Did they win?
Like, bring it.
Did Caddell and them win? You can't be stoked to get your face beat in. All right? That's the first thing. You can't be stoked to get your face beat in. Everyone's excited until that.
Every Bama team wins in Baton Rouge. That's what Bama does. Baton Rouge is not – all their night game, they've got a 78 win percentage in Death Valley. And hell, I think 22% of the losses are Alabama.
Okay. So what I would say is the same thing that I said a couple minutes ago. The expectation is Bama goes everywhere and wins. So you're not shocked when you go there and an adverse moment hits you because you're prepared for it. But you're also prepared to overcome it. Mm-hmm. And that's what I said about teams that aren't prepared to win games. When it happens, you're shocked, like, oh, my God. But if you are prepared for adversity because your coach has prepared you for that moment and you believe in what that your coach said, this is how we're going to get it done, yeah, you walk right through and you keep on chewing. But the expectation is we roll down there and you get W's.
That's what Tide does. That's just what the Tide does, isn't it, Smoke? No, no doubt. And that's why, look, you see it in the line. Bama's favored by 3 for a reason. I think I know you don't like giving predictions. I will. I think Alabama goes down to Death Valley and wins this Saturday night. I like Alabama a lot in the matchups. I think they favor Alabama. I don't think LSU's that great of a team right now. I think they've been a little bit of a pretender and got showed up at College Station. And I think Alabama's the better football team. I think they go down there and pop them Saturday night.
We'll see.
We'll see. And for all you asking, yeah, I think Ole Miss rocks. I think Ole Miss is going to rock a little bit of the boat in Oxford. And again, I will be here Monday to eat every bit of that crow that I know is coming. And Smoke's going to be like, Petty, I told you so. You shouldn't have got your hopes up. I was just letting you know beforehand. I'll be like, yeah, I know, Smoke. everything you done told me this year is going exactly like you didn't tell me it goes. That's why you 37 bottles of water.
I'm due coconut water. I'm due for one.
With that said, man, Smoke, as always, it has been a fun Monday night with you on here, spitting the truth at all of our fans. Follow us, but first of all, man, follow the Bama Standard. Come over for Twitter, hit that subscribe, hit that like, because this is the opening kick. That means this the opening of the week. We've got a full slate coming at you this week. Tomorrow night, the flagship at 6 Central, the Bama Standard. Y'all got a guest tomorrow night?
Man, you know we got one, man. Run it. You know we got that 4-star coming in, that tight end, Alabama commit, Marshall Pritchett. He'll be here on there with me, Marvin Constant, Steve Brown, Justin Riley, and Stephen M. Smith, the real superstar of that show.
There you go. And if you aren't watching that show, you are missing out. That is the flagship for a reason. It is the Bama Standard. It is the standard of the Bama Standard. But then directly after that at 8 Central, you got me again with my boys at the final whistle. Talking about Matt Caddell, Chris James, Lushawn Graves, Ty Hayes, and the star of the Bama Standard Network, one Dan James, Chris's older brother. We will be hitting you up. And then on Wednesday nights at 6:30 Central, you got the final dynasty, the Crimson Dynasty with C.C. Payne, JB. Again, Stephen Smith bringing out some hard-hitting stuff. And then on Saturday, as soon as the game ends, we'll be here for the post-game show. I'll be here with my man Justin, Cishi, Dan James, Matt Caddell. We got different guys that hop in, so be here. We'll be here to discuss it, win, lose, or draw. Hopefully you'll win. And then on Sunday nights, 7:30 Central, talking Bama with JT, JB, Stephen Smith, and the gang. I hope I hit that. Did I hit the time wrong, Justin?
No, you're good.
Okay.
No, you're good.
Right, you're good. And then I'll be back here Monday to eat crow with my boy Smoke. But, man, we got a huge week coming up. Like I said, ignore all the craziness that don't matter and get ready for some college football. We got a big weekend going down to Death Valley. Follow the cash. You can catch me at Petty_Daniel. You can catch Smoke where?
Coach Smoke V. Dixon on X and Instagram. Same guy, same way. Point at me. Hats off to you.
I'm left-handed. I think I'm dyslexic.
Go the other way where the elephant's at. You'll find me.
Man, Smoke as always. This funnest hour of the week for me is spending it with you talking ball, my man.
Always, my good brother.
With that said, we'll see you next week.
All right.